Hello ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, and welcome back to another Deck Tech. Today we'll be talking Modern again, and with me today I have a very special guest. Introducing the first deck that ever won a Modern Pro Tour. It's Eggs! Actually, to be honest, Eggs made a big splash at the first Modern Pro Tour. And because of that, everyone started playing Eggs when Modern first became a format, and that ultimately got its most important piece banned from Modern in general. While you won't be able to play Eggs at your Modern tournament anytime soon, there's a deck that's very similar to it, and I'm going to do a deck tech of that deck today. This deck is called Ironworks, and it really makes use of recycling artifacts to gain monumental card advantage and combo off with one giant spell or one giant effect. Anyway, Ironworks has been around a while, but I think it's not very popular just because it arguably is not as fast as the original Eggs build that originally won the first Modern Pro Tour. Since cards like Second Sunrise are banned just because Eggs was just too damn good, we have to use certain alternatives, and therefore we call this deck Ironworks for a very obvious reason. This is the reason right here. But this deck has a lot of alternatives that arguably work just as well. While they do cost a lot more mana, this deck is completely capable of generating it and round turn 4, which is still really good for Modern standards. Most decks usually like to win around turn 4 in Modern, so I feel like this deck has quite a lot of potential, even though it doesn't have the original pieces that made Eggs so explosive. Now, one word of warning to all you watching at home. I know this deck has been around a while, and I have played against this deck before in sanctioned events, but to be honest, this is my own brewed list of this. I did not neck this list whatsoever, so for those of you at home watching who do play this deck and saying, why are you running these cards? Why are you doing that? This could be better. This could be a better suit for you. Maybe it can, and I would appreciate your comments and thoughts on it. But right now, this is the list I've been running and the list I've been testing, and so far it's been working pretty good for me. Again, the obvious reason this deck is called Ironworks is because of the Cart Clan Ironworks, which is the deck's main ramp engine. In case you're not too familiar with this card's kind of uncommon and is not very well known in Modern. In fact, this is probably the only deck you will see it in Modern. It is an artifact for 4 colorless mana and has sacrifice an artifact, add 2 colorless mana to your mana pool. This is excellent simply because we can sacrifice as many artifacts as we like and get as much mana as we need. Since Modern is known for having tons and tons of cards, there are several small artifacts that we can sacrifice for monumental value just by using the Cart Clan Ironworks. Specifically, Chromatic Star. Chromatic Star is absolutely phenomenal in a deck like this simply because its trigger ability triggers whether or not you use its activated ability or sack it to Ironworks. It's pretty fantastic, as it can give us mana no matter how we use it, and a card no matter how we use it. To back it up, we also have Chromatic Sphere, which is not as good, but still pretty effective for what we're trying to do. Chromatic Sphere gives us some mana to filter out our colors when we need colored spell, just like Chromatic Star does. However, its ability will only trigger once we use the activated ability. We can only draw a card from using the activated ability. We can get mana from it from Ironworks, but we still won't be able to draw a card from that. Another great artifact to sacrifice is the Ichor Wellspring. This card gives you a cantrip upon entering the battlefield, but also upon leaving the battlefield, and considering we're going to be recycling our artifacts a lot in this deck, getting these in our graveyard and sacrificing them for mana and cards is monumental. It does take 2 mana, but we do have something to help us out with that, and I'll show you in just a moment. But frankly, this card's pretty darn awesome simply because we get so many triggers off of it. For a little protection and potential sacrificing value, we run a full set of Aether Spell Bombs. This card can give us a little bit of repellent that we need in the early game if need be, but more often than not, we're hopefully just going to go off turn 4 and not worry about what our opponent is doing. We can sacrifice these for cards if need be, which is really nice, and we can also just pop them with the Ironworks to get some mana. Pretty versatile card overall, and it's pretty cheap as well. Lastly, while we won't be sacking this to Ironworks anytime soon, we run a full set of Lotus Bloom. If you run this deck, you obviously know why we run these. We recycle artifacts a lot, and frankly, the cards you know that we use to recycle them will get us this directly into play, and we won't have to suspend it ever again. If you are new to this deck, the big recycle engine that you're probably have heard of that this deck runs is Fate's Reward. Fate's Reward is an instant for 3 and a white mana, and it returns all permanents to the battlefield in graveyards that were put there this turn. This also includes your opponent, so your opponent can also sacrifice permanents in response to it and get actually some value off of you casting it, so do be careful. Replacing Second Sunrise is this epic 6 mana sorcery, Open the Vaults. In case you're not familiar with it, for 4 generic and 2 white mana, you can return all artifact and enchantment cards from all graveyards to the battlefield under their owner's control. Now, you might be wondering, holy cow, a 6 mana sorcery, I'll never be able to cast that. That isn't true whatsoever, simply because we're just going to be sacrificing all of our little tiny artifacts for 2 mana with Kark Clan Ironworks. It does cost 6 mana, but another thing you have to keep in mind, in addition to for it being a sorcery, this returns everything, regardless of whether it left play in the same turn or not. It doesn't do the same thing that Fate's Reward does. It actually gets everything out regardless of how long it's been in the graveyard. And honestly, it's quite easy to cast if you have a couple of chromatic artifacts and a couple of either Lotus Blooms or Kark Clan Ironworks. Once we've brought our artifacts back with using one of these cards, we'll be able to do this process all over again. And considering we're going to have more artifacts, the more often than not the times we sack them, we're going to be basically chaining together a whole bunch of cantrips and getting a whole lot of cards and a whole lot of mana. You just have to have a little patience because it does take a while, but it is well worth it because if you can chain this all together, you will win games. I'm pretty sure not all Ironworks decks run this next card, but I've been running it and it's been working really good for me so far. I run a full set of Ethereum Sculptors. These are fantastic simply because we can get Kark Clan Ironworks out on turn 3. And sometimes start working turn 3, sometimes you will have to wait a turn or two, depending on whether or not you have access to white mana or not, or enough white mana for that matter. But the Ethereum Sculptor is fantastic. You can sacrifice it to the Ironworks to get more mana. And it's just awesome because all your little 1-drop eggs that you run in your deck are free. If you have 2 out, your 2 mana artifacts are free. And it's just fantastic. It's just been working great for me. I don't think every Ironworks deck runs this card, but I run it and it works fantastic. The only problem with it is it's a creature, so all your opponent's creature removal is just going to knock it out. It dies to lightning bolt. It dies to damn near everything you can think of, except maybe terror, but no one uses that anymore. Bringing up the rear, we actually have a couple things to keep our, our artifact stacking spree in check or in line. Running a full set of Reshape and 1 Word of Invention. More often than not, these are just used to get an additional Lotus Bloom that we can use to sacrifice for more mana. Usually you just want to sacrifice one of your chromatic artifacts or a Wellspring to get a card, and in addition to get a Lotus Bloom. These are just wonderful if you're in a bit of a pinch. These are wonderful to get the mana you need. That's mainly what I use them for. There are a couple other reasons you can use them. You can sometimes get them to fetch an Ironworks, but that's very rare. Usually you'll be using these when you're on your spree of sacrificing artifacts. In addition, we have 2 support cards. One of them is kind of essential, the other is kind of wacky. The essential one is Elixir of Immortality. This is really good when we have gone to the very bottom of our deck, and we will get there. Elixir is just there in case we need to shuffle our graveyard back into our library. Just be careful with this, though, because sometimes you don't want to use it when your graveyard is full of artifacts. You want to make sure you use it after you use your Open the Vaults, because you want to shuffle your Open the Vaults and Fate's Rewards back in your library and not your artifacts, because you want to recycle those with Open the Vaults and Fate's Rewards. The other card I run is kind of an option, but I find it comes in handy, especially with Open the Vaults, and that's Key to the City. Keep in mind, you can use this activated ability of discarding a card and targeting 1 creature that can't be blocked this turn. It's actually up to 1 creature, so you can discard the card no matter whether or not you have a creature or not, or you can just be a nice guy and make one of your creatures unblockable until end of turn. But frankly, I just use this because sometimes I have a Lotus Bloom in my hand, and I just want to get rid of it, and I want to put it into my graveyard so I can bring it back open, or open it back up with the vaults, or open the vaults, just so it comes back, and I don't have to have this useless card in my hand. Also, Key to the City is an artifact, so we can pitch it to Ironworks to get more mana. One big word of warning, though. If you ever plan on playing this at a sanctioned event, I strongly suggest you bring some dice, because you're going to need to keep track of your mana and your storm count, because the way we win is usually by casting a giant Grape Shot. There are a couple of other ways to do if you don't want to use a Grape Shot. You can also use a Pyrite Spellbomb, which you'll have to recycle a lot more, but it can actually work. This is how I believe the original Eggs deck won games back in the day. It would just recycle a Pyrite spell bomb, if you can believe that. We also have access to the Aether Flux Reservoir. This thing's a bit bulky, but I actually like this a lot, considering that this deck can have problems with life gain. Our only source of life is Elixir of Immortality. So this can give you a little more life. It does cost quite a bit, but hopefully you can reduce your cost a bit with your Ethereum Sculptors and all the mana you generate, so it shouldn't be hard to get out. It does give you a lot of life. Like the Grape Shot, you will have to keep track of how many spells you cast in a turn, but likely you're going to be gaining a lot of life really fast, and you should be able to get to 50 life pretty quickly. Although it may seem weird to some people, and some people may be more comfortable running more, our mana base consists of 16 lands. Since we are trying to win as fast as possible, I like using the fast lands simply because they give us the colors of mana we need and they come into play untapped. I run 5. I run 4 Seacrum Coast and 1 Spirebluff Canal, which is hiding there beneath my 2 basic lands. I run a Plains and an Island. I like to run the blue-white lands because blue and white are obviously our most common colors. Running a Ghost Quarter. Ghost Quarter can be reoccurred with Face Reward if we need it to, although it doesn't come up too often. I just like having it just in case I need to destroy a land. And finally, I run a full set of Darksteel Citadel, which is a very important land with cards like Face Reward and Open the Vaults, because it's an artifact land. We can reoccur it with those cards, so this means we can actually tap it for mana and sacrifice it to Clan Ironworks and get at least 3 mana, or up to 3 mana. I, of course, run 4 Spire of Industry, which is another great land to give me my multiple colors of mana. More often than not, I actually usually use it for colorless, but it does come in handy when I do need a card source. Moving on to sideboard, I like Leyline of Sanctity, but if you've been watching my channel, I think you would know that about me right now. Aside from Leyline, which I know is a fantastic card for a deck like this, considering we want to protect our combo from things like hand attack, we also can run a few counters. My personal favorite are Pact of Negation and Spell Pierce. Simply because of efficiency, just keep in mind, Pact of Negation is only good when you're about to win the game. You have to win within the turn you cast Pact of Negation, more than likely, unless you have some mana saved up. And Spell Pierce is nice simply because people are going to be sniping your artifacts. You want a cheap counterspell that will likely counter anything that will destroy your artifacts. I'm running Echoing Truth right now, mainly because I don't like some nasty permanents. Stony Silence is very, very nasty against this deck, and you want something that can combat it. I'm also running Echoing Truth because there's some other nasty cards that I don't really like that can ruin the deck's flow. Although you have a lot of artifacts, Aethersworn Canonist isn't nice because it will only make you cast 1 recycle per turn, and you don't want that. You want to just do it as much as you like. I don't have any, but I would also recommend trying Fragmentize to combat these 2 cards, simply because it just gets rid of them altogether, and sometimes Echoing Truth may not hold them off long enough, so you may just have to be careful. I also like to run a full set of Nile Spell Bombs, simply for anything graveyard-oriented. Since you recycle all your little artifacts, Nile Spell Bomb is just fantastic. You will have to add black mana to your pool to get its card draw effect, but frankly that shouldn't be hard to do simply because of the mana base. Another artifact I would highly recommend, I don't have this, but I would highly recommend this if you're afraid of your strategy getting countered, is Defense Grid. Defense Grid is just a nut card in this deck, holy cow. And that's our deck tech for Ironworks. This deck is wonderful if you love combo decks, love tiny artifacts and recycling them, or just loved playing Eggs back in the day when Modern first became a format. Like I said, this is my own brew of this list. I'm sure there are other lists of it somewhere. If you do run this deck and would like to give some tips or have any suggestions to all the other people watching this video, feel free to leave a post in the comment section below. Thank you all again so much for watching, and if you are new to my channel, please like and subscribe, as everyone deserves to have the knowledge of Magic the Gathering, and doing so will help get this and all the other videos on my channel out there. Again, my name is Ryu Spectre. Don't get caught playing Second Sunrise at your Modern tournament. The results will be disastrous. And I will see you all next time.